Welcome to the CyberGov Podcast, where you'll learn how to build a cybersecurity strategy that will help you earn more revenue across your government contracting business. All right, welcome back to the CyberGov Podcast. We got a special guest here today. This is just one of my ride or dies right here. Alan Elliot, founder, CEO, Elliot Management. I mean, super guest here. I'll tell you about how we met in a little while. But Alan, go ahead, introduce yourself to the folks, man.
Man, I appreciate the opportunity to be, exposed to your audience, man. But Alan Elliot, CEO, founder of Elliot Management LLC. Man, where do I start? So let's start with what I do. Cyber. Got into it based on the military, right? You know, the military, they tell you, hey, this is your job, but all these other duties as assigned. That was one of the duties I was assigned. So I ran from it for years, man. I was like, I don't want to do anything with this, but it just kept calling.
Oh, that was an additional duty for you?
What? Man, I deployed, right? I deployed to Qatar, and our IT guy, our Izzo, he left. So I was a CT, I was CTA, and they were like, all right, man, we need you to do audits. It's like, I want to do audits. Like, we're going to do audits. So that's how I ended up getting into it, right? And learning and figure it out. And it was something that was there that I learned how to do, and it was kind of like, well, you should stick with it. I didn't want anything to do with that stuff, but
additional duty.
Yeah.
No, my additional duty in the Air Force was I was a snow augmentee. So it was a good thing I didn't turn that into my career. I mean, nothing against a snowplow, but
if it was snowing in Qatar, man, we had a problem, So yeah, man, it was. I was CMPCQ, Combined Media Processing Center, Qatar, during the middle of the war in Iraq. They were like, yeah, man, we need you to do it. I said, I don't want to do it. I was like, well, here's the SOP, go do it. And I'm sitting there like trying to figure this stuff out, right? It took me a while, but I got it down, and I was holding it down for about a month and a half, 2 months before the new IT or Izzo came in. So that's where I got exposed to. Didn't really get into it until it was like 2012, 2013 when they made the transition from DICAP to risk management framework.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of intrigued me because I was like, oh, I like that, right? Like if the threats change, then so should your boundaries, so should your posture. So
Absolutely.
I took an interest in it, right? That was when I was in Colorado working for a particular company out there. Just so happened, transition from Colorado down to Louisiana. There's no work for me. I get a call from OSI PJ. They're like, hey, we want you to come work with us. But part of that role was, you'll be a PSO, but you'll also be a SCOT too. So I really had to dig in because, you didn't see a lot of us in OSI PJ at that time.
Yep.
I sound like old dude now, right? At that time. I was a kid.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Hey. So that's when I really got into it. I really learned, a lot about risk management framework. And then, I just kind of ran with it from there. 2020, the middle of COVID, that's when I launched my company. Well, I went all in on my company in 2020, but I launched it in 2018. And it was just, saying, hey, all these things that I learned from the military, learned from OSI PJ about how we implement security into our systems. I noticed that on the outside, they're not doing that, bro. They hook up to a router and they're like, oh, we good.
That's how everybody is, right?
Yeah, exactly. I got a password, right? Which password?
That's all I need.
But that's how I kind of, went to that path and, just mature my business from there.
Awesome, man. What made you want to start a business though?
Very interesting question. I had to go back to 2012. So I had my first son, right? In 2012. He's born and I'm just snotting around, crying. I'm like, oh man, so I didn't know I was gonna name him, right? So I called him Baby. Like the whole time he was in utero. So he's like, he's crying and everything. My wife was like, say something to him, What's up, baby? And he goes, he give me that look like, I know that voice. Instantly, my life changed, right? So I knew that I couldn't pass down an employee ID number. Like I had to create something that would start his life, right? Where mine was kind of starting to taper off, right? So in 2012, I started Elliot Management LLC. I didn't know what to do, didn't know nothing about government contracting. I just said, I'm gonna figure it out. And I sunk so much money into it that I was like, let me just go back to work. So I went back to work, and like I said, I started learning those things, right? And I started taking strategic positions to learn the areas that I need to learn, and that's how I got into the cyberspace or OSI PJ. But that's what made me start my company. Was I wanted to be able to have something that I can hand down to my kid.
I'm gonna have to use that, man. You said I can't hand down an employee ID to my son.
No.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that for real, man. That's real.
It's real, man, because it's like I tell people all the time, like, you killing yourself on the job. Like, they'll cut that $10,000 check and they'll post that rec.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people work hard. Even some folks, pass away, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And desk was cleaned out, and somebody else was in there.
Yeah.
And watching that is tough. It's very tough because it really puts into perspective that this is a business. You're here to work. Yes, they will miss you, but that business has to go on. So you making that decision is like top notch, man. It's a risk too. It's definitely a risk.
We've talking for a while, so it's definitely a risk, man. I'm a dice roller.
Absolutely, you and me both. And sometimes I done lost that game where I'm like, you know what, I may have to hit these streets again.
It's like that dude in Vegas, right? You can tell when he maxed out the plastic and he throw that dice, he's like, no! That scream that come from down here, you be like, oh yeah, he had suicide watch tonight.
Yes. Oh man, yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but that risk pays off.
It does.
That's a different perspective too, because it does start to pay off. You just gotta take more calculated risks.
Yeah.
Like cybersecurity. I mean, yeah, take calculated risks there. So
Absolutely. And that was an interesting thing about cyber, right? It's like, you had to be strategic with your risk taking.
So speaking of that, you mentioned you started in 2012.
Yeah.
Didn't have any experience in government contracting. But now you're kind of in that space. What would you recommend, like somebody who is starting their own business? Potentially, it could be goods and services. It could be pest control.
Shout out to Tracy with the pest control company. We'll come back to that. We got to come back to that. All right, we'll go. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It could be a pest control. And the reason I'm asking you that question, Alan and I met during the Veterans and Procurement cohort. And it was during COVID. So it was all virtual. It's not virtual right now. Shout out to VIP though, because we've got a lot of classmates there. Des, Alex, we got a ton of people there. Really good folks. And we were both in cyber.
Yep.
And it just clicked. It worked. And we've been keeping in touch ever since. I'm curious, like if you had to talk to somebody starting their business, what would you tell them about cyber?
So about cyber, right? Man. So what I would tell them is this, right? Like, you got to think about it early. Like, don't wait until, the plane is already flying to then try to figure out how to or how to integrate cyber into it then, right? Because it's too late. Not saying it can't be done, but it's going to be way more expensive and it's going to, cause a lot of headache and stress. But if you think about that early from the get-go, right? Like this is how I break it down to people. You provide healthcare for your employees, right? If you're a business, you give them healthcare. Whether they use it or not, they have it, right? They're paying into it.
Yep.
So you want your employees to be healthy, right? But your first employee is this thing that's probably going to be your laptop or your desktop computer, right? That's where all your information is going to reside.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you want to make sure that's healthy? Don't you want to provide some type of health insurance, air quotes, for that as well?
That's a good point.
That's what cyber is, right? Protecting that data. So start thinking about that stuff early. Knowing what you're utilizing or who's accessing that information and where that information is being stored.
That's a good point. What I'm hearing is, you know what? your cyber strategy needs to start with the beginning or the inception of the business.
Absolutely. You know,
that's tough to do.
Here's a tidbit though, right? Let's say your whole approach is to build your business to grow and and sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you start with that up front, that cyber, that protection, that data up front, that just makes that business that much more profitable on the back end when you sell it, right? Because they're going to come through and they're going to evaluate that stuff too. And now you're going to be, trying to get that big dollar amount. And you're going to be calling me saying, "Hey, can you help me?" Right? Now I'm doing the bird rub like, yeah, I can help you, but it would have been a lot cheaper if we done it up front and it just matured it over time versus trying to put it all in now, right? So yeah.
Excellent point. So starting that cyber strategy early in your government contracting pursuit is going to help you in the long run versus, trying to bolt it on later. I see a lot of people do that. I mean, you get registered in SAM, you get the business name. You're like, that's a win. Yeah. I'm about to get these contracts. Right. You're not even close.
Not even. That was me in 2018, bro.
Me too. Me too. I registered in SAM, got the name, looked at everything. I started looking at contracts like, yo, this one right here, I'm getting this right now. Hey, this one right here.
I'll never forget, man. A buddy of mine, Bruce. I don't know if you're gonna see, but shout him out anyway. His name is Bruce Lee. I kid you not. He's Bruce. I like Lee. It. Yeah. So I
shout out to Bruce Lee.
Yeah, shout out to Bruce Lee. Man, that's my guy. I remember we were in a program office, and I'm like, Bruce, counting down my days, dog. He's like, what you mean? I said, I'm out of here. I got registered the same. I got my cage code, right? I'm about to go get these contracts, Bruce. He's like, oh, for real? I said, man, listen, 18 months tops, baby. I'm killing the game. Man, it was furthest thing from the truth, because once you get registered to SAM, you're like, oh, what's this too? Like, oh, they need to know who I am? What's a contract vehicle? Like, who's driving, right? It's like, oh, nah, man, listen. It was some of those straight up, just people look at you, they be like, oh, you got a long way to go, my guy, right?
Long way.
Long way.
What a contract vehicle is? Okay, yeah. Understood.
I'm like, what's the make and model of it, right? And they're like, nah, it's not an actual vehicle.
But by the way, for folks who are new to this, contract vehicle would be a method of how the government can do business with you, right? Yeah. You would have some sort of contracting vehicle method put in place that the government typically uses that they can pursue and use with you, whether that's GSA or something like that. That would be a vehicle that you could be on where they can leverage your services through that agreed upon contract.
Yep.
I was the same way though, like no idea. I remember my mentor telling me, look, man, nobody knows who you are. Okay. You can have, it looks like you do great things, but no one knows who you are. So you need to get to it. Hit the streets. You need to get back out on these streets. So it was tough. It's tough, and it still is.
Good learning experience, though. Definitely good.
Absolutely. Now, I've known you for a while.
Yeah.
And there's something that keeps coming up for real. Like, you've always been drawn to do things as a mentor for the youth, whether that is talking about getting them into cybersecurity or just helping them in their day-to-day make decisions about their future and career.
Yeah.
What is driving that, and why did you even start doing that?
Well, that's a good question, man. I don't like using the word transparent, but I'm going to use the word honest. I'll be 100% honest with you. I'm a kid from Rochester, New York, right? So, I knew who my dad was. He just lived on the other side of town, and he was like, "Hey, I see how you doing," right?
Wow.
So I didn't have that male figure in my life. I had my stepfather, right? But it just wasn't, it wasn't the same, right? What I having to deal with that. So my mom got me in groups, around good, solid men who were, looking out for the youth in the community, wanted to show them a better way, giving them structure, right? So I'm a product of a program similar to that, youth mentoring, right? And through my elementary years, through middle school, all the way up to being on the step team and all that stuff. So don't ask me about that. But that was a good time. Yeah, I actually got some opportunities you can post it. But just that having good, solid men who they weren't interested in your mother. They weren't interested in anything and getting it from you. They were just interested in pouring into you, right? When I moved to Texas, I met my realtor at a Boyce Watkins event, right? He put on a Boyce Watkins event. I was, trying to get into the stock market and learn all that stuff. So I met him there. He was the host. He was emceeing the event. So when it was time to move here to Texas, he was my realtor. And we just got to talking, had similar backgrounds, similar military stories. He's a vet also. Shout out to Tim Jackson. And then he said, yeah, man, I do a youth mentoring program here in Dallas. And I said, man, sign me up. He goes, whoa, wait a second. You just ain't gonna come talk to the boys. I said, listen, whatever your process is, I'll do it, right? Because I wanted something to give back to the community. But rather than going through and creating my own, like, why not partner with somebody who's already doing it, right? And build that. I started going. I brought my kids. They got a 2-parent household. A lot of these kids don't. But I wanted them to just be a part of that and to see the message that I've been giving them is the same message that we give to these other kids, right? That time went on, and man, I was like, I've been doing it for the last probably 8 years.
Wow.
I enjoy it. Yeah,
I did not know you've been doing it that long, man. I mean, I know you mentioned you have been doing this and talked about it, but I didn't know it was going on for 8 years.
Yeah.
That's a commitment. 8 years, that's absolutely a commitment. Man. I seen some marriages that didn't last 8 years. That ain't no shots at nobody. No shots at nobody. Yeah. But I just seen some things that ain't go too long.
Yeah. So now we've been going strong for the last 8 years. It's kind of crazy because now it's at that point where those young men are now graduating high school, they're in college now, and then you come back and you just see that, hey, Mr. Tim, Mr. Alan, man, remember that day you told me this, and this, man, that helped me so much. Like, that's what I like that. Right? That's what makes it worthwhile, and you got your ebbs and flows with it, but just seeing what you poured into these young men, and they grow up to be outstanding men themselves. So that's what I love about it.
I like that, man. I like that. That's awesome, bro. That's awesome. Need more folks to be out there at least trying to mentor somebody. Yeah. I mean, I had a few mentors growing up. My dad was there, but it was still a community, right? Yeah. Because it takes a community of individuals.
Absolutely. Because you hear from your mom and dad, and it just become like Charlie Brown, womp 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 womp. And then your favorite uncle say the same thing. You're like, man, how you think about it like that?
Yep.
You got the message. That's all that matters.
100%. 100%. Man. Was there anybody specifically in your circle that kind of helped you navigate entrepreneurship?
Man, yeah. You know what? Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So as a couple people, there's a few that stand out. When I say his name, you already know who I'm talking about. Roland Dixon.
My guy Roland.
Roland Dixon, man. Mr. Must Be the Money. That's what I call him, right? He's another one that we went through the VIP program with us and just built a great relationship and a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information. And as he's going through things, like he'll call and we'll talk to him. So it's like, I'm not even that far in my business process, but it's certain things that I've gotten to now where it's like, oh, me and Roland talking about that, right?
Yep.
So definitely Roland. Another one who's kind of like an unsung hero, Mike Sanders.
Yeah.
Mike Sanders.
Yeah, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, he's another one that most people probably took offense to what he was saying, but I took what he was saying as constructive criticism, and it helped me tremendously, right? From that conversation and that interaction, we just kind of built somewhat of a relationship. He gave me some books that he recommended, and I read them, and I understand where he comes from, right?
Yep.
And then that third person would be a business mentor out of Georgia, Phil Benamino. Phil is a good dude, man, and just a wealth of information. Not totally outside of the government sector, outside of cyber, but just like when it comes to business, strategy, planning, sales, like Phil is that guy. So definitely those three will probably be at the top of my list.
That's awesome, because you got to have a mentor of some sort that can help you along this road, along this journey, whether that's government contracting or cybersecurity.
Yeah,
somebody, a guide that can help you along the way.
absolutely.
Shout out to my mentor, as a matter of fact, Caesar over at CyberBite. So if you've never visited or seen CyberBite,
Caesar.
take a look.
Yeah.
But Caesar, for sure, appreciate what you do. Thank you for that. Got a couple other questions. I'm always about taking care of yourself, self-care, preventing burnout, all of that stuff. You mentioned your boys, you're busy, your business, you got things going on. What are some things that you do for you to decompress? I asked Dondre. You know Dondre.
Yeah.
Now we get down with Dondre.
Of course you know Dondre.
Yeah, I asked Dondre the same question. I'm asking you that question because I want to know. Seriously, I don't even think I've asked you this question before.
Now that you say that, like, yeah, I don't think you ever had either.
Ultimately really interested in what you do to decompress or take some time for yourself.
So I would say, I'll be honest, like this last week I haven't been getting up because it's been cold outside, right? But I typically go to the gym around like 4:35 in the morning, try to get a little light workout in. But the things I do for myself is based around my boys, right? The kids, man. So if they got things going on, like my youngest, he just finished playing football a few months ago. So, that time with him coaching his football team, like it's still work, right? But it's that time where I can not think about business and just focus on something else. My oldest son is in boxing now, so the days I don't go to the gym, I still go to the gym with him, right? And we train. So those are the things that I kind of do for myself, but it's actually for them that just gets my mind off of strategy, proposals, deadlines and customers and things like that.
I'm still trying to digest that, because that's still in the vein for me of thinking about it for the children. I'm trying to see what you do selfishly for Alan, like selfishly for Alan. But if it is, hanging out with the kids, I get it.
I'm trying to think. I mean, that's not for me either.
Don't feel bad, because this happens all the time. I ask people this question, they're like, "No, wait a minute, I'm not sure."
I will say, here's two things. It's gonna sound bad, but I recently got into cigars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a part of this group, GRT, Gentlemen's Roundtable, and we'll meet one Saturday a month and have some cigars, just chop it up and talk about things that are important to men, right? And then the other thing I would say is, because I don't sleep very often, another way to get my mind off of business, college football. Right?
Absolutely.
So those are the two things I would say. Cigars and college football.
Okay. I can get with that then, because that is definitely, that's something that you watching football, that's for you to decompress, kind of not think about anything else. And I recently started seeing that when you take time for yourself and do those types of things, I know for me, that's when I'm most creative. Yeah, that's when I'm most creative. Yeah. It's not when I have a meeting and we got to get together to be creative on the spot. That never works for me. It's always if I'm doing mundane things, like if I could be watching TV or taking a walk or working out and I'm like, I got it. I figured it out. Or I got this idea now. Now it's the juices are flowing. I got it now. But it's typically when my mind is wandering and I'm not actually supposed to be creative at that time is when I can be creative. Yeah.
You got me thinking now, like, I mean, that question really got my mind going, because I'm like, man, I don't really take the time to be still, right? Just to kind of be still, be quiet, right? So those things can come to you. Like when I first got this idea of starting a business, I would do that. Like I would meditate, I would be quiet, I would be still, and I would get these ideas. And after you asked me that question, I'm like, wow, this is actually on the go. Like I don't take the time, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Make a little note of that so I could remind myself to be still.
Listen, I've been asking myself that more recently, and it's been a question I wanted to ask everybody else.
No, that's really good.
As we wrap up, man, I want you to tell the folks where they can find you if they need services. Like, what's the best way to get in contact with you? All of that. So once we wrap this, they know where to find you at.
All right. So you can always find me on LinkedIn, right? By my name, Alan Elliot. You can also find me on my company's profile on Instagram, ELLIMGMT. You can also find me on my via the website, www.ellimgmt.com. Cell phone, it's always on, it's always buzzing. So just give me a call. I don't want to do a Mike Jones, put my number out there and start getting.
People not
it's already out there, but, my wife like, oh, who know me? No, but yeah, I think that I don't be on social media very much. However, LinkedIn, Instagram. Oh, I will say this. So I've recently started doing speaking engagements. So shout out to you for putting that bug in my ear and pushing me to do that. So I'm actually speaking at a conference in February, Manifest, 9th through the 13th is the day of the conference, and I'm going to be talking about cybersecurity and third-party risk associated with cyber.
February 9th through the 13th, yes, Manifest, sir. Vegas.
Yes, it's a logistics conference, but there's tons and tons of cyber-related issues within the logistics space, within all the spaces, right? Every discipline, there's going to be cyber that touches that. So me and my team, we're here to support and help whoever needs those services, anything from assessments all the way up to your more sophisticated cybersecurity services, strategy development, things of that nature.
Absolutely. Yeah. Find you on LinkedIn, your company on Instagram. Correct. You'll be speaking in Vegas, February 9th through the 13th
at the Venetian.
Vegas at the Venetian.
Yeah.
So you out here. You definitely out here. Appreciate you taking the time today.
Absolutely.
We talk all the time anyway, so this is just happens to be on camera, so people can see the actual hilarity.
It's so many more things I would say, but I'm on camera, so please, bro. We chopping it up.
We'll have some more episodes together, so we got some more stuff that'll come out. Thanks for taking the time today, man. I really appreciate that. Can't wait to have more conversations around cyber, government contracting, and just life in general.
Yes, sir. Man.
Thanks, brother.
I appreciate the opportunity, man. Thank you.
Yep. Come listen to us on YouTube, LinkedIn, or your favorite podcasting app.